let's start from here.
Hi, I'm Monika Bielskyte, and I design futures for a living. I work with the entertainment industry on science fiction projects, be it movies or series, as a world designer. So I imagine what the future worlds would look like there. I also consult technology companies and help them see contextual futures, geopolitical, social-cultural. So they would design technologies less in a vacuum. And I, as of more recently, work also with governments and cities, helping them to see fictional futures for real places. That's what I do.
Hello, my name is Liviu Babitz. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Cyborg. We design new senses for humans. So we were born with 5 senses. And because everything that we created because we have these senses. So we decided to add more. But I give a whole talk about it tomorrow. So I won't say it all now. So you enjoy the talk as well.
Hi guys, I'm Tom Allen. So I started at Arsenal this season. Spent 6 years at Aston Villa before then, and I head up the sports science department there. So basically, I am the player's best friend. I decide who's running after training, so I get to break the bad news to them. We focus on trying to hit 2 key objectives: reduce injury risk, whilst maintaining and improving physical performance at the same time.
Thank you. So we've got 3 different people from 3 different walks of life, 3 different aspects of technology. We've got somebody who's, let's say, doing, the larger design of things, which is, and that's Monika. We've got Liviu, who's more involved in the cyborg, the human-machine interface. And then we've got Tom, who's doing a lot of, sorry.
And then we just got Tom.
Yeah. We've got Tom, who's doing a lot of analytics and figuring out, what's behind data. And we'll share some insights from all 3 of them and try and connect them to one topic, which is, what is the relationship between technology, people, and the future? And all 3 of these, let's try and bring these together and see if we can agree or disagree on things. So let me ask Monika first. Monika, you travel the world. You told me earlier that you are, what was the word you used? Not a wanderer.
Digital nomad.
She's a digital nomad, which means Monika doesn't have a single place that she calls home, or she doesn't go to an office 9 to 5. She's traveling. She meets hundreds of people every month, every year. So she's out there in the world, literally traveling the world. What do you think about this convergence of technology and people? And you see a lot of people in your everyday. What do you think is happening on a worldwide level with the convergence of people and technology?
Yeah, so indeed, I'm a digital nomad. I continuously travel the world. My work not just allows me to do that, but actually incites me to do that. Big part of what I do is research. Even when I work on the projects of fiction, they're heavily inspired by reality. So I'm basically going everywhere and trying to see who are people that are really breaking new ground and innovating. And for me, innovation is really not about gadgets. And I think the hardest thing today is to imagine the future that has hope in it. We are flooded with all kinds of bad news. And for me, the hope is never in technology. The hope has to be in humanity. And what you are realizing is that, I think we in the Western world have this idea that we live only in one time. But in fact, humanity lives in multiple centuries at a time. And nowhere that is more visible than, for example, in places like African continent or Indian subcontinent. So just recently, I was in India working with Reliance Jio, which is India's largest company, and Jio is the new telecom that they launched, which is the fastest growing telecom in the world. And so it's interesting because some of the things I work with their R&D labs are so innovative, yet they exist in a context of humanity that in some cases live like we lived centuries ago. So what fascinates me is really seeing how we are running this 21st century software on billion-year-old, million-year-old, millennia-year-old hardware, which is our bodies. You know, we have the bacteria brain and jellyfish brain and monkey brain within ourselves. And I think we overestimate what technology can do to us and you know, think that sort of AI is the answer to everything, or VR is the thing that is going to give us empathy. And what I'm realizing the more I go around the world is that the answer is always in us, and we have so much more to learn from each other. The innovation is not just happening in Silicon Valley. There's so many extraordinary things that are popping up specifically in the global South. And the answers that people are finding there actually are applicable on a much larger scale than some of the things that are being developed, again, in the West. Because in the West, so much of the technology that we're creating comes from the want rather than from the need. So it becomes a little superfluous.
Okay.
So I don't know if that
Okay,
answers that.
that's very interesting. Very interesting to get like the global picture from you. What do you think, Liviu? You work more with the machine, the human being kind of an interface, and she mentioned that we're trying to run software on this thing, which is our human bodies, which is millions of years, you know, thousands of years old. Literally, we're still young,
Yes.
but the body's old. You know what I mean? But
Yes.
what do you think about that? Where do you think this human-machine interface is going?
I know that we agree to disagree, but I actually agree with her. So it's all, I think people are speaking about merging with technology, and this is something that is happening now, but myself and other people, like Daniel Dennett, for example, would say that this merge has happened thousands of years ago. So the way that they describe it is that first there was humanity, then there was technology, then they merged, and then there was the population boom. The merge is, I think that what is happening today is that we are looking for a name for it because it's becoming so close. People like myself that have technology as part of their body constantly, so they live it, but I did not change. People ask me, are you a cyborg, and are you turning us into machines? And no, I'm not turning us into machines. The whole idea is to become more human, and the whole idea is to experience the universe as humans in a more extended way and not finish what's called humanity. That's not the aim, and unfortunately, this is how many times this topic is portrayed, as the machines are, you know, it's going to be a machine's world, but we are here to fight to make it a human's world.
So do you think there's a relationship between smart machines and people becoming smarter because of smart machines? Like, how do you see that paradigm?
So that's exactly why we exist, and I'll speak about it in our talk tomorrow, in my talk tomorrow. But in a world where all these amazing inventions that we can see, part of them here displayed, where phones are becoming smarter, houses are becoming smarter, minibuses, buses, everything is becoming smarter. We are here, or our company, we are here to make people smarter as well, because that's the main aim. That's what we enjoy doing, and we enjoy being human. So let's expand that experience.
Monika, let me ask you. So I asked Liviu, and I'm going to come back to you, Tom, after this, is Liviu mentioned that smart machines are not necessarily going to make us smarter, and it's people who are at the essence of it. How do you see, as a global traveler who works with technology people all over the world, do you think people in different parts of the world are being challenged with developing technology the same as all of us here, or in a different way? And maybe talk about an example where there's very basic technology and people just love it because it's something new for them.
Okay, so for me, one of the first things, and actually I have a bunch of ideas that came from what you said. What is smart? Smart does not necessarily mean intelligent, right? And what is smart for us within our Western mind, Western culture, is not necessarily smart somewhere else. And especially, it's not necessarily intelligent. So this is something to really bring it back to, that smartness is not intelligence. For me, thinking smart is not enough, right? Because just smartness or sort of sustainability is not enough. We have to become sort of regenerative intelligence. And I think we have to think smart and creative at the same time. Now, when it comes to human body and what you say, expanding what it is to be human, what strikes me is that in many aspects in the West, we might have forgotten a lot of aspects what it is to be human. And things such as ritual and all the practices attached to that, different ways to experience the body, etc., is something that is still incredibly important and present in so many cultures around the world, whereas we have eliminated that. So for me, it's interesting to see how in some places, especially like recently I spent quite a bit of, and did a bit of research in India, how people are thinking how technologies could be used also for these purposes. So not just practically to solve problems, but to fit into existing cultural context. So I think that is specifically interesting. And what was the last question?
No, that kind of gives a broader picture of what I was trying to ask. Tom, let me ask, you're a data person.
Yeah.
You work with numbers, you believe in information, you don't believe in any of the mumbo jumbo around the world, you're a man of facts. How do you see the importance of data in the evolution of people now with respect to whether you want to talk about a specific culture or region? What do you think the role of data is, specifically talking about the Internet of Things? It's all about information, it's all about capturing that data. Where are you with that?
So for me, I think data is important, but I do think there is starting to become a dependency on data. I think a lot of people need data, and you see in our sport, when people start coming out of university, they have this technology, they use it, it breaks midway through a session, they don't know what to do, which is ridiculous. People forget the human element. The human element is massive. So I can provide data, but how I deliver that data is key in our sport. And that's the thing you have. So in our sport, we have, I think we've got 15 different nationalities in our team. So how I deliver it to the Spanish lads, how I deliver it to the English lads, everything's completely different.
Okay, wait. Yeah, please go ahead, absolutely.
Yeah, so I call that hashtag question the algorithm. And so it's sort of, a lot of people ask me, you know, when I give talks, etc., oh, so what are the jobs of the future? What are the things that we should be looking into? And a lot of people speak about, you know, working with the machines, collaborating with the machines. But for me, a very interesting thing is questioning the machine, right? And we agree to disagree, but in fact, we kind of agree. And the conversation we previously had is, how do you interpret that data by taking into account so much of is our humanity and bodily interaction and all that kind of stuff. So I feel that that is one of the most interesting emerging things, is how do we not just collect the data and collaborate with the data, but really question and see where the algorithm just continues in its sort of own way, but we actually have to put it back on track by using our own human mind. And as Kevin Kelly says, maybe asking the questions is specifically what is the thing that is most human, that will still remain very hard for the machines to do.
Thank you. Thank you, Monika. I was going to come to you, Liviu, actually, with another question. You have an implant. You have a device that's attached to you, and it's collecting information, right? It's collecting data.
No, so this version of the NordSense that we started with, it does not collect that data about myself. But the next versions will. And I think that the whole conversation that we, as the community of people that create all this Internet of Things, should understand is what is what we tell the people outside. How will they see that? Because if we tell them that this is all about you know, solving problems, as she said, that are not necessarily human related and are related to things that people outside will say, well, that's not for me, that won't do any good for me, then we are kicking ourselves in the leg, because people will not embrace that, and they will see, oh, you're collecting data for your financial needs, for your company needs, for all your personal needs. And actually, at the end of the day, most of us, if not all of us, are good people that are trying to take the world forward.
And what I was trying to ask with that is the whole question of privacy. If whether you have a device attached to you or not, but it's the whole aspect of, okay, we're collecting information and collecting data from different devices at different times and different places. What is your take on privacy and the governance of that data? We also know that GDPR is coming out probably next month. What is your take on implants or devices that are attached to humans and privacy? How do you look at it?
I think that the whole idea around privacy, this whole notion, it's tickling, and we are dealing with it all the time because obviously it's important to us. But I think that in many ways we are again not having the right conversation in the right way. I'm a father, okay? And people are complaining, oh, why are you filming the streets? Everybody's gonna see me, everybody's gonna do that, why you do that? As a father, I feel comfortable that my playground where my son is playing might be safer because of these cameras. And that's the story that I'm comfortable with, and it's a true. So I'm okay with that. So I think we have a big communication problem with the world outside.
Tom, I need to ask you, now you work with really high performance athletes. You're not working with an average Joe out there, okay? How does data privacy and the collection of data play a part when you work in an environment in which you work? You work with Arsenal FC. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So every player has in their contract the fact that they're going to be measured in training. So they'll sign like a release form. Now, when they go away on international duty, some of the international teams will actually ask for that data. We can't release that unless we get permission from the player himself. So we take privacy of data very seriously. And it's one of those where the player has the right to say what happens to his data.
Okay. Do you have a take on that, privacy and data and information collection? Because as far as I can tell, the definition of privacy is different in different regions of the world. How do people in developing worlds look at this aspect of, okay, my data is going to be out there available for everyone? Is that even a concern?
It is everywhere, actually. I mean, people, again, that's another thing, a big misconception we have about specifically Global South is that people are, not tech savvy or something like that. In fact, because people are leapfrogging technologies and entire stages of technologies, sometimes they're much faster to capture certain things and certain new paradigms because they're not stuck to any old idea how things used to be. So that's one answer, that yes, people are taking it seriously. And in some cases, they're being able to envision new models precisely because there were no previous models. But actually, another thing that I wanted to add, for me, again, because I work between reality and fiction, on one side, I'll work on creating fictional stories, helping directors to imagine these worlds. On the other side, I'll consult tech companies. And there's a flow between the two. So we are now realizing that the power that these dystopian tales have, and the importance of many of them for us to understand where we should not be going. We're talking about, let's say, Charlie Brooker's Black Mirror, or Keiichi Matsuda's hyper-reality, etc. But a lot of engineers with a more of an authoritarian flair, let's say, sometimes will take that and look at it as a product roadmap. Okay. So dystopian vision with, in many cases, lack of data privacy, talk about Minority Report, etc., then becomes Peter Thiel's Palantir. Okay. So there's a great importance today, and maybe it should not be just coming from the world of fiction, of imagining more positive visions. So startups themselves, and especially larger companies, maybe have to really make an effort to imagine that future world where we live in the new paradigm in the way we use data and the way we conceive privacy. So telling these stories rather than just engineering step-by-step products, for me, seems incredibly important.
Thank you. Tom, I have a question for you, and then we'll kind of end it with everybody giving a comment. I want to ask you, as totally unrelated to what you do in your current job, I want to ask you about what happened with Facebook just now, a few weeks ago or a month ago, and all that data was gathered by a third party, they collected it, and now Facebook is under fire about, hey, how did you release my data? Now, as far as I can tell, when we sign up on a platform that's online, we're giving away a lot of our rights and our information being captured. How do you see that as a data person?
I don't think people realize how much data they're giving away. I think, especially now that he's been saying that he's going to bring out all this opt-outs and what have you, I'm very surprised people weren't aware that kind of data was being held. Like, it just baffles me. I think we need to educate people more because of that. I think it's a big educational. People still don't understand all this data that's out there. I mean, like all the health stuff out there could be being collected, and that goes to insurers, and then when you go to get health insurance, that affects your health insurance. Like, it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So we've got to be careful with the amount of information that is out there, and there is a lot, and leaves us susceptible to people using that information.
Okay, thank you. Okay, last round. I want you guys to tell us the top 3 things, each one of you. So what, in your opinion, are the top 3 things in 30 seconds that we should be looking out for, that will change the world, that are dangerous, that are nice, whatever you want to talk about. So let's talk about 3 things.
Let's start with the boys. I always get the first.
Okay, Tom, go for it. 3 things, anything that you think we should know about.
So for us, we're going to start opening up more commercial base. So we are opening up some of the information that we do on players. So for instance, our GPS company, they're going to release a little GPS that the kids who support Arsenal can have, and they can train like their players. Mm-hmm. So they will go play their 11-side game and said, you run as much as Mesut Ozil. I mean, that's massive. Okay. So it's now opening that wider market, so people will really understand what really goes into athlete preparation.
What are the top transformative things you would suggest the audience to look into more from yourself as a guidance?
Really understanding data, so educating on how algorithms are put together, etc. For me, there's a lot of people want to look at what the new technology is without understanding what data we're already collecting. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Liviu.
So obviously what we do at Cyborg Nest, I think, is going to change the world, because we very different from a lot of companies that are getting data from inside the body out to a machine. We are actually going and we are taking data from outside and bringing it to the brain. And we know that this will help humanity move forward. And I have an ask, actually, for everybody. And I'm sorry to see that there isn't much done for kids, for the education world. Everything is developing so much and is going so forward to everywhere. But schools are still functioning as 500 years ago. Nothing has changed. Not much has progressed. And there is a lot to do in that field.
Thank you. Monika.
So, seems obvious, augmented virtual mixed reality. But I want to add an angle to it. I feel companies, hardware companies, have been doing a really bad job in communicating what it's really about. And movies such as Ready Player One actually been doing a disservice, again, presenting it as an entertainment platform. For me, what immersive media tech is really about is a paradigm shift in computation. So understanding that we are moving from computing within the screen to computational space and everything that it implies in terms of user experience and interface, I think is a really big thing. That's number one. Number two, I think that's a heavy and very depressing one. Autonomous weapons and everything that is sort of matching, nanobots and sort of robots on a very small scale with facial recognition and everything that implies. So think of, the horrific stories of, acid attacks, and match that with currently rampant online abuse. Myself, I do receive a fair share of death threats and rape threats and that like that. And when it becomes, very much anonymous, you could you could threaten somebody's life or actually take somebody's life away using these new technologies. I think that's a massive issue. So that's a very heavy one that we need to discuss. And a third one, really exciting, I think it's in material sciences, starting to look more into all of the organic materials such as algae and fungi and bacteria, in thinking how we create not just replacement materials to what we currently have, plastic and stuff like that, but really how do we create new materials that could allow us new things, including things within our body, and looking much deeper in how, you know, it's not the man or human and nature, but we are part of nature, and how these materials that we're creating could be also very interesting, integrating our body in a very interesting way, differently to what sort of hardware technology as we know today is integrating our body in that more conventional thought of.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So really great insights. I suggest, highly recommend that you guys connect with all three of them during the cocktail hour and ask them more questions. So for now, thank you so much. A big thanks to Monika, Skute, Liviu, Babitz, and Tom Allen. Please give them a big hand, please. Thank you. Thanks very much.